Proposed Alabama law would require residents to pass drug tests to get food stamps. What do you guys think of this? I process food stamp applications. During training, the head of our department came in to speak with us and he brought an article with him. It was an article about a young child starving to death in a major city and his face next to it. You may be joining us thinking you will be this cool guy finding people trying to scam the system and whatnot, but let me tell you, preventing this is your #1 priority. We save lives first, that's your job. If someone is scamming the system, they will be found out eventually and there's other people to handle that. I do not want my face next to an article of a child starving to death in my state ever again. It really put a new perspective on what I do and how I see things like this. If you agree with the spirit of the law or not, it does not change the fact it will go against priority 1 my department and will likely cost lives. They tried this in Florida, and in an amazing coincidence, the contract for the lab testing went to a company owned by a relative of the governor. #X200B. They caught so few offenders that they spent way more in lab costs than they did saving money by denying benefits. And what happens if they fail a drug test? Does the state help with drug problems or just take their food away? I wanted to make Congress take drug tests to get their salary instead. Most of these comments focus on it being expensive and impractical, and it is. But it has also consistently been found to violate the Fourth Amendment's protection against unwarranted searches. The government can't search you without probable cause that you committed a crime, and applying for welfare is not probable cause. Thus states also burn money defending a policy that has no chance of surviving a legal challenge. Edit. https www.newyorktimes.com 20141204 US Politics Court strikes down drug tests for Florida welfare applicants. HTML This isn't just an argument I invented. The 11th Circuit Court, based in Atlanta and covers Alabama, decided this in 2013. They've already done this and I think it was Florida and it turned out to be a giant waste of money. Every time this has been done somewhere it has ended up costing more money for testing than it has saved by revoking assistance. Also, if the real intent was some moral cause, then anyone receiving government money should need to be tested, not just the poorest. That includes judges, police, state senators and representatives, etc. Funny how that part never happens. Also, if you think for 1 second that certain types of people aren't going to get some false positives on their tests, then you've got the wool over your eyes. I think it's a waste of money. It isn't like this is the first time something like this has happened. About 10 to 15 states have tried drug testing for welfare benefits, and every single time they end up spending much more money than they end up saving by kicking people off for failing their test. Almost like most people poor enough to need food stamps can afford drugs. Besides, what does it matter? Is it really that big of a deal if some poor person gets smoked out by a friend? Seems like it would further perpetuate the cycle of being poor. Ducking idiotic. 1. We did it in Orlando. It cost more to administer the tests than was saved not feeding people. 2. Drug use is in no way connected to my right to participate in government assistance programs. Can I not pay taxes if I'm on drugs? I'm in favor of it. Hell, make food stamp recipients document their lives and what they're doing to improve it. It's a horrible waste of money, unless it's extended to include all people who get a government check, up to and including the governor and members of Congress. Then it'd get real interesting. Only if we can drug test government employees before they get paid, since they're also taking taxpayer money to eat and pay their bills. How are you all not getting this? If you have money for drugs, you don't need government money for food. If you don't understand that, then you don't deserve a vote. So addicts don't deserve food? This will just further marginalize the vulnerable. They should also drug test the legislators before they can get paid, see if that strikes a nerve. As long as politicians also have to pass same drug tests, then why not? Just more government corruption to satisfy conservatives' desire to hurt the poor. Let's drug test politicians instead. Kids of drug addicts still gotta eat. Enough said. I'd rather take food tests for drug stamps. Everybody else has already pointed out that they tried it before and it was a huge waste of time and money and such. I just think drug addicts deserve to eat too, you know? Why stop with drug addiction? Let's do this with other diseases and ailments. Diabetic? No food for you. Cancer? No food for you. Heart arrhythmia? To ducking bad loser. Broken leg? Should have thought about not being poor, you idiot. Citizens do not abandon all hope of privacy by applying for government assistance. Does it also require all elected officials to be subjected to one mandatory baseline drug test and then unannounced random test for the rest of their term plus any pension period afterwards? If not, duck all that noise. Poor people don't need to have their dignity taken away, any more than they do already, and shouldn't be subject to unconstitutional searches. Corporate CEOs and mega-farm owners should get the same drug testing before they qualify for their welfare, tax subsidies. Food should be a right, and no matter what you do you shouldn't be without access to food. Similar to shelter, and healthcare. So yeah, I'm 100% for it. Ill-supported if we drug test CEOs to accept any government contract. Drug test anyone using the pass-through core loophole, anyone using government subsidies, etc. In my view, it is all subsidization from the government. If you're gonna drug test one, we have to drug test all. Otherwise it's indefensible. I'm sure this comment is already somewhere in the forum, but, if you can't afford to live on your own wage, you can't afford recreational drugs either. They should have work requirements instead of drug testing. They've tried this already in Australia, was ditched because vilifying drug addicts like this just resulted in the individual resorting to criminal activities to feed their addiction, i.e. resulting in a larger cost to society than the cost of welfare, and having a substantially lower chance of the individual taking steps to overcome their addiction, i.e. rehab, etc. The inverse of this, i.e. spending money on programs to help addicts overcome their addiction, get a job and successfully reintegrate into society, was actually found to be a much more efficient use of the money than committing it to the required drug testing centers. It's stupid because drug tests and testing facilities aren't free. It's even stupider because this has been tried in other places before and the end result is not that many people receiving subsidies like this were actually using drugs, so the places that were doing this were wasting money to find a reason to withhold money from the needy. One thing that you should look into is who owns the testing companies that would be handling this if it goes into effect. I'll bet you $10 they have some relation to the people trying to push this legislation. I am almost certain instead of those taxpayer dollars going into the hands of needy people, greedy corporations want them going into their pockets instead. Don't get conned, Alabama. Not fair to the children. I am all for everyone being tested for everything. As long as, all politicians have to make public all their financial information going back 20 years. All politicians have to take MP2 and their results be made public. All politicians have to take drug tests, to include alcohol, in order to receive their paycheck. All cops have to take drug tests, to include alcohol, daily before their shifts. Let's level the playing field a bit. Let's find out who's really serious about trimming the fat and who's just grandstanding. The sentiment that drug addicts don't deserve food is a bit alarming, to say the least. Drug addicts still gotta eat. If you're willing to risk your life for drugs, which is what addiction does to you, The threat of not getting food stamps isn't going to be the thing to break a person's addiction. Ducking rehab doesn't even always work, let alone this half-baked waste of time and money. So what is a person so sad and desperate that they turn to drugs supposed to do? Just curl up and die because they failed at life's challenges? Rob and steal to survive? How Christian of you to think so. No wonder you need to carry guns as protection. It's all a part of keeping the desperate more desperate. The USA views desperation as the only and ultimate motivator. More progressive countries, and science and statistics, views happiness and a supportive society as beneficial to both the individual and the society. But keep those people who were not smart enough to be born rich downright? Desperation is the only way to make these lazy people behave. You know what I carry instead of a gun? The knowledge that nobody around me is so desperate that they need to contemplate hurting me to survive. My armor is my knowledge that I don't live in a place that forces such desperation from their citizens yet calls itself free.